Welcome back to the YSN Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. It is the final boss. Over the last week, we've been down in Myrtle Beach, Ty Bartell busting his ass every single day, getting to Austintown Fitch games, but he had one thing in the back of his mind the entire time. Ladies and gentlemen, our own on-the-ground reporter slash lover of all wrestling, drove from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, all the way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up and a big welcome to Ty Bartell. What's up there, WrestleMania Ty?
Not much, DJ. Not much. Just started rolling in this morning too. We made an all-night trip from Philadelphia back to good old Northeast Ohio. So we're just settling back into home life now.
Well, we talked about the sacrifices that had to be made in order to get championship gold and to accomplish your dreams. And Ty, as the final boss would say, Mama Rose, look at you now. Look at you now. Look at you, my friend. You're able to pull off an unbelievable spectacle, doing what you love, and then ultimately going and checking the box on the bucket list of all bucket lists and seeing possibly, if not inevitably, the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You're able to live that. Walk me through kind of the arrival through the departure of your time in Philly.
Well, it's funny because I've been to Philly before too, and it's like when you roll in, you see the traffic, it's lined up even getting into the city days before the event, and then you walk out. There's wrestling shirts everywhere. It's literally it becomes the capital of wrestling forever for that weekend, wherever WrestleMania moves year to year, because you walk out and there's just thousands of wrestling fans just walking the streets of Philly. And you could see where this is starting to trend in the entertainment business too, because so much business comes to the city of Philadelphia and you could just see it by walking out on the streets. There's lines at all the businesses, lines at the food places. I mean, so much business, so many people come huddled to wherever WrestleMania takes place, and just going in there was crazy, just witnessing that atmosphere and then being in the event itself. I mean, when you got 70,000 people that are just wrestling diehards too, and reacting to every little move, every little punch too, and they've been wrestling fans for 10 years and worldwide audiences too. I had a guy that was from Perth, Australia, sitting next to me. I had a guy from Dubai that was behind me. There's people from all over the world that come and witness this too. It really is what they say, the Super Bowl of professional wrestling.
Well, that's all well and good, Ty, but at the end of the day, this is America. This is still our sport. This is professional wrestling, and no matter how many cultures are able to observe it, I still feel like good old red, white, and blue is always going to be waving. We sing God Bless America at the beginning, naturally. For you, when you arrive on Friday, you go to WWE World, as they call it. What was that like? I mean, that's when you get to kind of meet and get a little bit closer to some of the wrestlers. We saw some pictures around from other people on my timeline that were able to celebrate the event. What did you guys do on Friday to kind of pass the time and to kind of take in the sights and scenes?
Well, you roll in, you have to get your credentials and everything too. And then it's crazy because you go in and they got the whole store too, but they have all these fan interactive photo op opportunities as well. They got the ring set up for you too. You got the big sign with the Rock as well. There's wrestlers that come through these events as well too, that you can get in line and get pictures with too. So it's really one of the highest interactive fan events that you could have too. If you really if you're a fan of wrestling, I highly recommend, once in a lifetime, you got to check it out too, just because the level of interactivity that you have too with everything, it really is unbelievable.
What was some of the things that you're going to take cherished memories back? Well, I guess you're already back, but the rest of your days and as a wrestling fan, things that you'll never be able to replicate?
I think just honestly being able to sit down too and witness that stage too, and then once the event starts, you hear the entrances too, and then you hear the fans reacting to the entrances as well, and these larger than life characters become right there center stage, right? I honestly think just like watching this WrestleMania too, and just like the way it ended, right? Because I've been following the whole Bloodline story the last few years, so I think the way they kind of culminated it too, and with like Triple H taking over creative aspect wise of WWE, they were calling it kind of like the Renaissance era right now, and I think it's well due just because you watch the weekly programming, you watch the story build to this. I mean, this Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns, it's kind of like the Rocky tale too that they were kind of trying to tell. I feel like going into it with him losing last year, building up to this, and then if you follow him in his AEW career, I like how everything kind of blurs the lines within other wrestling companies too, and it all kind of becomes one.
So I guess my question to you, when you sat down in your seats last night, I mean, it was action jam packed uh, from the World Championship kickoff. I mean, the money in the bank was cashed in. Damian Priest able to walk away with the World Championship after Drew McIntyre gets it. For you, Ty, did you ever sit down? And my biggest question to you as part of this two-parter was, did you were you a Cody crybaby, or did you acknowledge your tribal chief?
So we did a little bit of standing too. It was cold in that stadium those 2 days. So we were huddled up. We had the layers on. We had the blanket too. We got plenty of the WrestleMania merch to keep us warm because we needed it, man. The first night was a lot colder than the second night, but the second night, once that sun goes down, man, it gets pretty chilly. No, I was happy for Cody to finish the story. I really love the Bloodline story, but I think it's been something that's kind of it's evolved, and I think it's kind of evolved past the championship. I don't think the Bloodline story is done yet. I think Roman has some unfinished business with The Rock that's going to be tend to, or I think there's going to be a storyline built between the two of them. But I was happy for Cody too. I mean, the whole rallying cry of finish the story, I think that's kind of taken over not just wrestling culture, but culture in general. You see so many people with that tagline, finish the story, right? And all of us figuratively have our own story that we're trying to finish, right? And he's one of those guys I feel like a lot of people can see kind of themselves and relate to a little bit, right? About trying to finish their story and coming back from maybe the depths of despair, the failure of last year, to crawl all the way back to this year and get it done too. I understand it's all scripted. I understand that it's all storytelling too, but I
Whoa,
mean, just
whoa,
like a
whoa,
good
whoa,
movie.
whoa, whoa, whoa. let's not knock on that door yet.
Yeah.
It's not scripted. It's just it's hyperbole is what that is.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Ty. Come on.
No, it was a really incredible spectacle event too. And watching honestly Cody Rhodes' entrance, like red, white, and blue, donning the entire stadium like WrestleMania. The letters are lit up red, white, and blue. I looked over to my wife. I'm like, this is like really cool right now. Just his entrance alone too, and just seeing the good old red, white, and blue all around Lincoln Financial Stadium was really cool.
All right. So did you do the oh,
I feel like
when it was time?
I feel like you got to, right? You have to give it in because I mean that's the whole stadium too. It's all in unison. They get loud and they get proud for it too. My wife was a big Randy Orton fan, so she was giving it for that triple threat match too. But night two was what was a great event from the jump to all the way to the finish. Like it felt nonstop, one after another.
Did you feel? I mean, we've seen WrestleManias before. It was kind of the women's revolution, so to speak, where it was the all women's main event, and it didn't feel like that was necessarily on display. This WrestleMania to me felt like it was a lot more authentic. There was
Mm-hmm.
nothing really forced. You mentioned obviously the bloodline story and it's running its course, and everybody kind of being able to relate to Cody Rhodes and finishing their own story, which I think, Ty, that's a great dynamic. That's such a great analysis of that. But for you, I was very jealous, at the same time entertained, because that main event, we will talk about that main event for the rest of our, especially you being there. You'll talk about that for the rest of your life. I'll talk about it for the rest of mine. Laying in bed, obviously, after the 660 or 656-mile journey back from Myrtle Beach to East Palestine, Ohio, just to watch WrestleMania on my own TV. the main event, dude. I mean, from the obviously bloodline rules, which nobody really understood what it meant. You just knew that everybody was going to interfere. You just didn't know anybody was going to come out for Cody. And then when John Cena comes out for Cody, and then the Undertaker come for Cody. Don't forget Seth Rollins coming back, be the for Cody Rhodes. For you, what was the? I mean, you almost had to have a going, being in that atmosphere with 72,000 people by your side, taking in all the sights. What was it like for you?
I mean, you knew when they kind of set aside like an hour for that main event, something crazy was going to happen. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I said. I was like, we can't miss a minute of this too. And just like I said, man, the energy of just like every entrance and everything. And they kind of tied in the story of like Solo took out John earlier in the year. So Cena comes back and gets the revenge. I love the long-term storytelling. I love the little tie-ins that you have to pay attention to. If you watch the weekly programming now, you really got to pay attention to the stuff happening in the background too, because there's little stories being told there. And I think what Paul Levesque Triple H is doing creatively now with wrestling and calling it the Renaissance era, we're seeing that kind of attitude era spike, I think, in wrestling now. And it felt like one of those old Stone Cold and Rock main events too, where you never know if maybe the corporation was getting the upper hand too. When they made it no disqualification, you knew Gerald Briscoe and then we're in the corner of whoever the corporate champion was, right? With The Rock at the time. I love the storytelling of that now too, what they're doing with wrestling and making wrestling, I feel like, cool and relevant again to all ages as well, and not just catering maybe to the PG crowd that you've seen over the last kind of decade or so.
And I think one of the things that I appreciate about you more than anything, I mean, obviously you're a great storyteller. You do great write ups. You do all that, but your ability to capture the sports entertainment side of wrestling and appreciate that side and bring it into what we do at YSN, I think it's what makes such great announcers, because the majority of us here at YSN are fans of
Mhm.
WWE or some type of professional wrestling. So for you, when you're watching WWE, when you're watching and you're growing up with the WWE, because you and I, even though that we're I feel we're close in age, there's an age gap. I mean,
A
there's a
little bit,
15,
yeah.
17-year age gap. I'm rooting for Hulk Hogan and you're rooting for John Cena. That's two different ages of gaps, I guess, from that standpoint. What's your kind of take on what you kind of pluck from sports entertainment and put into what we do here at YSN?
Yeah, I tell everybody all the time, like a lot of my announcing comes from like my appreciation of wrestling, like watching Jim Ross, watching Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler, and just like you hear the excitement. Watch a Jim Ross commentary match from the 90s, early 2000s, man, and like hear the energy in his voice, hear the hyperbole, hear the metaphors, the similes that he utilizes when announcing too. And I try to take that and bring that to the forefront, because there's one thing too, and I will say, watching wrestling live, and I've seen plenty of pay-per-views live, the one thing that is always missing watching it live is that commentary too. You do miss hearing that little bit of commentary, because it adds to the experience, as any good commentator does. And I think that's the one thing I really learned from wrestling, because I've heard bad commentators in wrestling, I've heard good ones, and a great commentator can make a good match feel even greater, larger than life too, when they're they're jumping out of their seats excited. Like Pat McAfee is another great example of a commentator in wrestling, as someone that just gets hype, gives you the energy too, and he brings the show, the entertainment value to it, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Sports in the high school realm and what we do, they tell their own story, right? They most of the time tell their own story with rivalries and stuff, but maybe people don't appreciate that story as much. We got to kind of bring that to the forefront. We got to tell the story in maybe a different light to pop that intrigue too, to show people, hey, this is why this is a little bit more interesting too. This rivalry, right? We use that word rivalry in our thing a lot too. We try to build these rivalries among schools, obviously all friendly rivalries, but you bring that kind of entertainment value to high school sports, because it exists there as well. Anything can be a story if you have a good storyteller kind of painting the picture around it.
I mean, I couldn't put any more perfect myself, Ty. For you, I mean, you made that trip. We kind of alluded to it from Myrtle Beach to Philly. Let's take it back to Myrtle Beach for a second. Obviously, you got Wednesday was rained out for you, but you had a lot of time to talk with Steve Ward and the families, the community of Austintown, and obviously the Fitch softball team. Um, there's an appreciation. I mean, and we don't take this lightly. The bond with us and Fitch, and you being a graduate of Austintown Fitch, is something we're very proud of. But you had a chance to go out Wednesday night, I think, with the softball team to dinner. For you, you get a lot of those conversations firsthand, and like you said, it's great to watch these games. It's great to watch these matches, but there's something missing when you're watching it live, that families actually go back and watch our games because they want to hear the commentary, how we thought things were going at that certain time. What were some of the conversations, if you would, that you had on Wednesday that you were so excited and so proud to go out with Steve Ward in the families of Austintown Fitch softball?
It's always, I think, good when you get to talk with Coach Ward and be able to kind of pick his coaching brain a little bit more one-on-one too, and what they're trying to build and what they're trying to do over there in Austintown. And when you're talking with the kids too, and just I think getting to know the kids a little bit more on a personal level. And you talk about me being like genuinely excited, and a lot of people ask, like, do I muster it up too? Is it all fake? It's all genuine excitement when I see what these kids do. And that's because you build these relationships with these kids, and you got to know them a little bit on those personal levels. You ask them, the things that they like doing too, what their actual hobbies are outside of softball too. Learn the person too. Person over player is a big thing that Coach Ward is put an emphasis on over at Austintown Fitch. And that's one thing too. We here at YSN take value in the person before the player too, because it makes rooting for the player that much stronger when you know the kind of person and the story that they themselves are telling each and every time they step out on the court or the field.
And I think that's important because, it's hard to put into context until you see something happen at like the global level. So, for instance, I saw last night. I'm not sure if you did, if you've had to have a chance to run back on kind of the Peacock experience of
Yeah.
what happened last night, but Cody wins the title. He finishes the story, and everybody comes out of the locker room, right, and celebrates with him because they know Cody, the person. They cleared out the locker room, so to speak, but they did that on their own. That wasn't scripted into it. Michael Cole, who's been doing commentary and working with the WWE for the last 27 years, was caught on camera getting emotional and crying and getting a hug from Cody Rhodes and all that stuff because he knew the boy, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, 38 years old, just a few months younger than I am, winning his first ever in his family, mind you, WWE Undisputed Championships world title for all intents and purposes. Ty, for you, I know it was tough for you to not be able to have that moment last year to call the Austintown Fitch state championship because you had prior obligations and going to work, and you drove all the way down and then all the way back to work. For you, is it, and I don't want to make this about you, but is it your turn to finish your story? Is that something you talked about with Coach Ward, and how much you'd love to be able to call their championship this time around?
I love following the Falcon story and telling whatever the story is going to be. And I mean, obviously, I think going into this year, they are going to be heavy favorites again, but we still know the world of sports and anything can happen too. We still got unwritten chapters in this particular story. But the one thing I will say, I would be lying to say, I'm pretty excited when I looked at the schedule, looked when the scrappers start, looked when softball season ends, and know that there's no conflict there to know that I can maybe be the one behind the final chapter, or talking behind the final chapter of this particular year's story. But there's still chapters to be written, and there's still plenty of games to go this season. And as Coach Ward and the rest of the Falcon softball team like to say, we don't want to look too far ahead. So we'll take it one game at a time. But should that time come and we're talking final chapter, I think it would be awesome to be the voice behind writing that final chapter.
Final question for you is, as I alluded to before, you jumped on here. We jumped into the all WWE talk. For you, um, you noticed as well as I did, and Anthony does it as well. Sam got a chance to kind of experience it as we were down in Myrtle Beach. These teams that take these journeys, these trips down south, they have a leg up, I think, later on in the season because they're not trying to play catch up and kind of chase their tail a little bit towards the end of the season. What makes these teams that go down south, whether it be Myrtle or Pigeon Forge or Cocoa Beach or Orlando or wherever it may be, what what makes these teams so special? What gives them an advantage, an edge as they look to really start finishing their story?
I think it really it just goes back to maybe putting yourself in situations you're not necessarily always comfortable with, so that way nothing surprises you down the road. And I think a lot of these teams, it's making that long trek. Some of these first pitches are 8 in the morning, so that means these girls are getting up realistically around 6:30 too, getting ready, getting to the field, and getting ready for a first pitch at 8 in the morning. You talk about putting yourself in not everyday kind of situations too that you're going to see over the course of a season, but you might see down in the state title picture and the regional picture too, with start times too, and competition that you're going to get down there that you're not going to always find locally too. I mean, you have to literally go to these type of places to get your opponents from West Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Kentucky. Like, I mean, they all center to these certain spots. And like you said, just being able to get these games in. I mean, these teams, we had one rain out day on Wednesday, like we talked about, but these teams were able to get games in while we were having torrential downpours up here in Northeast Ohio that entire week. So we were the only show in town, it felt like, I think, for a couple of days here on the network down in Myrtle. I mean, that's a leg up in competition in there because there's nothing like experience. What's that old Loki saying, right? Right? Experience is experience. Doesn't matter what it is or the competition. You need to be able to get games in to be able to just get that game feel. Practice can only do so much. You need to be able to get those full 7 innings in, 5 innings in if it's a shortened game, right? Get your 15 outs and get the W on the scoreboard.
Ty Bartell, can't thank you enough. I know it's short notice jumping on today and you're running on very low sleep. So go get that rest. We appreciate you chasing the American nightmare so you can chase your American dream. Ty, thanks so much for joining us today, buddy.
Thank you for always having me, DJ. Let's go. Look forward to another strong week here on the network.
You got it, buddy.